Well, I guess I better find my headphones. Share right where I left them.
Muted.
Video call. I've seen that.
Testing. Got it. Okay. Is this on? Okay. Think we got the technology figured out. Thank you. Happy National Gardening Day. I just know. Yes, it apparently April 14th is National Gardening Day. That popped up on my feed this morning. I'm like, well, that's convenient. And apparently happy National First Day of Summer. A little warm out there. It's that time of year. A lot of effort from the gardens goes into this. It's kind of gotten its own life to it. The plant sale is always, it's a big revenue generator for the gardens. It's important to us, but it's also important about the connections we make as gardeners, about sharing plants, and that's why we try to do our best to pick some plants that are really good for you. That are going to perform well. Because the last thing I want to do is go, hey, go try this. Good luck. Um, we want everyone to have a success and positive things, but bear in mind, killing plants is how you learn too. So always, keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged. So running through some just background stuff with the plant sale. There we go. It's the usual spiel. Pay attention to what's struck out because I'll show you a little surprise at the end. As usual, Friends of Reynolda Gardens, the pre-order is open. This is one of the benefits of being a friend of the gardens. It'll run until Wednesday, April 22nd at 8 o'clock. We'll shut things down because we have got to have time to pull all these orders. And I think it's been over 100 orders at least every spring. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. We do ask that you pick up pre-orders on Friday. you know, we just, it's easier to get all that out of the way than dealing with getting pre-orders at the same time as the sale. Because if you've been there at 7:50 on Saturday morning, it gets busy real quick. And the email that'll have the link to pre-order your plants will come out after the talk. So just keep an eye out for that. If you don't see it immediately, you know, go ahead and check your trash, check your spam, all those things, you know, just double check that. And then if you still can't find it, reach out to us. Again, when you can do your pickups, you can also get inspired and go, oh, I don't remember seeing that on the list. We encourage you to buy more. We are enablers. It could be drugs that you were spending on money, you know. So plants are better. As usual, taxes, we've got to, you know, I'm paying the piper tomorrow on April 15th, so everyone else has to too. So taxes are added. You can, if you aren't a friend of the gardens, of course, why? But we encourage you to become a friend. It keeps this place open and free to the public. It enables us to do everything that we do that we hope brings joy to the community. And you basically, we ask that you would do that by April 19th. So that way it can trickle through the university system and everything like that. So we can make sure we can still get you the link. So obviously not just because of the plant sale, but just because you should do it, become a friend of the gardens. Look, as always, front lawn of Reynolda House is where the sale will take place, starting at 8 o'clock, going till 2. Hopefully by noon, we're standing around with no plants left. That's the goal. So again, running through that, link will go out by 2 p.m. Check your spam folder. If you still don't see it, just reach out to us. We'll make sure that you get it. With that being said, I still love this sign. This was at the Speaking of Gardening Symposium up in Asheville, which it always happens in August. It's a fantastic symposium. I'll give it a plug for that. Always great speakers, and you're in the mountains. So, you know, who needs a reason to go up to Asheville? So with that being said, let's jump into plants. So we've got a number of different annuals that we've got in there, and a lot of these are propagated from things we've been growing. This really cool Joseph's coat. You know, the flowers are at the tail end of the season. They're these tiny little button-sized little pink or white puffs. That's not why you grow it. It's this wonderful kind of ruby with almost a green overlay on it. It just gives you color the entire season, and it'll spread. Yes. The link. Oh, just you wait. I'm not spoiling the surprise. You gotta wait. But yes, yes, there will be photos. But this one, again, it really keeps the color full sun all summer long. It's one of those things you don't need flowers on this. You know, just go with the foliage. So it's ruby leaf Joseph's coat. They're just great plants to begin with. We've got 2 ornamental peppers. This is black pearl. Again, you know, with peppers, they like it hot. They like it dry. You know, don't put it in a wet site. The foliage, you know, takes center stage for almost the entire season, but then you get the fruit that start out red, age to black. Now, I will give a warning. They are hot. I remember our old house down in Wahlberg. The neighbor came strutting over and was like, "Oh, let me try that." I'm like, they're pretty hot. I want to do it. Oh, whatever. He scurried back across the street real quick. They are hot, so you know they are ornamental. I would not, you know, chew on them unless you're, you know, if you're faint of heart, don't touch these as fruit. But in terms of giving you fantastic color throughout the entire season. If black isn't your color, there's this other one that we're growing called Calico that gets these kind of, it's got white, it's got green, it's got purple, a whole kaleidoscope of colors throughout the entire season. And then the fruit, you know, tend to be, you know, more traditional long pepper looking, of kind of a variety of different colors on those. Again, hot and dry, loves it. Fantastic plant for the summer. This I've gotten really excited. My wife's a begonia-phile, so by default, I'm a begonia-phile. When we were working for Plant Delights years ago, Tony went on his expedition down to Argentina. They brought back different begonia species. One of them was boliviensis, which was this, it ended up being hardy for them. Years later, we started seeing that show up in the breeding, and we started seeing all these new colors come out, and they're fantastic looking plants. This one just looks like it's on fire. Bossa Nova Night Fever Rosso. That's a mouthful, but it's got really nice burgundy foliage to it with those red flowers. So it's insane throughout the entire season. You can do it in bedding. You can do it in a hanging basket. You can do it in containers. Don't have it too wet. I mean, moist, but not wet. But this one can tolerate full sun. This other variety that they have is more of like a part sun, part shade, but it's got this kind of like kind of a peachy yellow color to it, and the leaves are a bit more green, but the undersides are purple on the undersides of the leaves, so that kind of gives a little bit of a bicolor tone to the leaves. But both of these, they're looking fantastic in the greenhouse right now. But again, a little different take from angel wing begonias. We always like to bring something a little different into the fold. But I've been thrilled. There's a whole range of colors, but these are the two we decided to go with this year. So Begonia boliviensis and the Bossa Nova series. As always, we've got to have a couple coleus. We've got fishnet stockings back, which I love this plant. The name's cool, but it's good to play with, different colors. You can use those purple veins to echo off, another, whether it's a purple leaf on the alternanthera or it's the purple on, I think we had Pharaoh's Revenge or Pharaoh's Mask colocasia, which had purple veins. So you had that color echo. So you can have a little fun with that. And similarly, you can go with Gaze Delight, which has more of that chartreusey background with those purple veins. So it's a fun thing where you can do a little bit of color echoes in your combinations. Shiny Shoes has always been one of my favorite ones. It's a purple, but it's got almost a shiny overlay to it. And this is a fun one. It originated as a seedling underneath the benches at Biltmore. So, if you ever get a chance to go in behind the scenes and you see their propagation area, thank God you got a horticulturist that looked down and went, that's different, and propagated this. And this has been a fantastic coleus to have. Rustic orange, I've always liked this color. We're always looking for some different coleus, and there's hundreds of them out on the market, so it's kind of always hard to find. We'll start bringing some different ones in, but some are tried and true, and we've kind of stuck with those.
Take images of that.
Oh, why not?
This is not one of the ones that can tolerate can have shade or it needs full sun.
These are more sun. I mean, it's kind of funny, the progression of coleus. They started out, they were always shade plants. Now they're primarily, you've got to try to find a shade coleus. They're primarily all sun ones now. Calibrachoa, these are relatives of petunias, but they're a bit more durable than petunias. They're called million bells because they've got, while they don't have the big flower of a petunia, there's lots more of them, and they will entirely coat the plant for the entire season. They like it dry and hot, not too dry, obviously give your normal water, well-drained soils. And in maybe not this past winter, but more mild winters, I've seen these over winter. So, obviously the annual industry is not going to say that. They want you to rip them out and replace them every year. But, I've seen these come back in different gardens. So we've got two colors, this Aloha Kona Cherry Red, which is a nice bright red, and Bloomtastic Orange Cartwheel. I'd love to sit in the meetings that name these plants, which is a nice bicolor, kind of an orangey red and that yellow cross throughout it. I heard someone mentioning elephant ears. I was sitting in a meeting on campus and they were talking about elephant ears being invasive. There is a variety of colocasia that does tend to run. That's primarily not what's in the industry now. The ones that take off and run, I'd have to look. Tony Avon has a comment about it, but the ones that are out there that we're promoting are the clumpers that even if they run, they aren't aggressive runners. So I would never put anything out there that's going to start going into our waterways and creating havoc. The ones we've got, lemonade is one we've grown. Even, sometimes you see yellow foliage and it's like, oh, that's going to burn up in the summer. This is a planting out at Plant Delights in the full sun, real nice bright gold foliage. Lemonade, it's a sport off of one from Alan Galloway, but it's even proven relatively, winter hardy more towards Raleigh. So in our area, find a nice little microclimate up against like a brick wall or something like that. It might come back, just as long as it's not wet during the winter. We also have black coral. This is one that originated from the breeding of John Cho. He was a plant physiologist at the University of Hawaii, and he was working on elephant ears as a food crop. Think about Hawaii, thinking about poi. So he was studying that. Well, Tony Avent, being the ultimate plant geek, oh, hey, Michelle, let's go celebrate our anniversary in Hawaii. I just need to do a detour and meet this guy. So Tony Avent starts talking to him about, hey, have you ever seen different things popping up? Two of them got together. Suddenly, you've got this guy that knows elephant ears in and out, starts breeding them for ornamental purposes. And the work that he's done is absolutely amazing. And black coral was one of the first ones that came out. It's this shiny patent leather black. It's just a statement in the garden. So that's a fantastic elephant ear. I don't know if Wake would want to do a black and gold here, a nice little combination. Maybe we'll do our own homage to that. Two others, illustrious. This is one that has come back quite reliably for us. In more full sun, that dark coloring gets even, covers the majority of the leaf. Okay, as a phone, I was like, there's a big cricket in here. But as it goes more into shade, you'll start seeing more green coming out. So you can kind of, it would almost look like two different plants, the full sun one versus the more shade one. The more shade, it's going to have less black. You can kind of see that gradation in that plant there. Coffee cups is a fantastic plant if you've got kids, especially when it rains, because the way that those leaves are held together, it'll fill with water in a rainstorm, and then it hits the tipping point, dumps the water out, pops back up. So it's a fun plant to have in the garden. And I think Michelle's used it for like her leaf casting. It's like the poster child for using for leaf castings. So those are two that, they are more hardy in our area than some of the others. With so many different elephant ears out there, it's kind of hit or miss which ones are really hardy. So I always like getting enough and then leaving half the clump in the ground and finding out, but you've always got a backup. Let's see. The white shrimp plant, we offered this 2 or 3 years ago and it really didn't take, but man, if you want something that's going to give you color the entire summer, you can kind of see the little flowers are that kind of, I'm horrible describing colors, pinky purple, but the bracts are the white, and that persists almost the entire summer long. So, and I've seen pollinators going nuts over it. It just keeps blooming. The photo you see on the right with the greenhouse in the back, that was at the end of the season. So it just kept going the entire summer. Once the heat gets going, it starts coming into bloom, it's not stopping. Yeah. See, this is my picture though. And I get geeked out on groups. I like just dishes. This Plectranthus, silver is a great like color to use in so many, you can play it against hot colors, you can play it off cool colors. And this, Plectranthus is like kissing cousins to Coleus. End of the season, it'll start flowering, but what you're growing it for is that silver, almost like lamb's ear like leaf. They can get a bit big, but if it starts getting too big, you can hack it back. It doesn't bother it. But here, I didn't realize I had done this until like I was looking at the talk last night, but there it is with shiny shoes coleus and also the Colocasia illustris. So you could get this combo, you know. And the nice thing about that is that color is going to persist the entire summer long. So it's an easy plant to grow. The flowers are kind of the same spikes. If you think about when coleus goes into flower, you get those loose spikes, basically the same type of flower. I normally would cut them off because that's not what I'm growing it for. So Plectranthus silver shield. Um, Another one where really the foliage is the main actor. This dancing flame salvia. So Salvia van Hootii is the traditional bedding salvia. That's kind of where they did they shrunk them down, and this one gets a bit bigger. It's got this wonderful combination of that bright yellow spattered with green on it, and then hot red flowers that start coming on kind of midsummer. And of course, like most salvias, the hummingbirds absolutely love it. They'll go after it. But again, looking for bang for your buck, this color is going to be there the entire summer. I still continue my love affair with porterweed. There's a nursery down in Louisiana, Almost Eden, and they've been introducing different varieties. So I've been trying to kick some new ones in. This Fiercely Fuchsia is a new one that we picked up and have propagated. Also Midnight Moon Improved. And what I love about, the porterweeds is if you've grown verbena, it's like if you take the flower from a verbena and just pull it out into a spike, they're closely related. What I love about these, while it's not going to completely coat the plant in flowers, what you get these nice spikes of flowers, but it's what it invites, because I have never seen a plant that attracts hummingbirds and butterflies more than this. If you've got kids and you want them to see that, excitement of all the hummingbirds and butterflies coming in, I guarantee you plant this. It's kind of like Field of Dreams. Plant it and they will come. The Cayennensis is kind of a pale blue, and the Franzesii is a really dark royal purple. We've got a couple more that, we might have some more ready for the in-person plant sale. We just got to wait and see how they flush out before the sale. If not, they'll be for sale in the Welcome Center. It's nice having that option. We've got we've grown Wendy's Wish before in some of the plant sales. There's more of that breeding going on. This is Skyscraper Dark Purple. I guess purple is kind of a relative term to some people. I'm bad on color, so I wouldn't, fuchsia, who knows? But again, hummingbirds are going to love this. It's going to flower all season long. This is a more compact plant. If it starts teetering out, because some of the salvias, as we get into really, really hot summer, they'll slow down a bit. And then when fall comes, they'll pick it right back up. But this one has done fantastic. We also have Skyscraper Orange, which is a bit more, I wouldn't say ranky, but a bigger plant. And it's got that nice kind of bright orange flower to it. And what's nice is with both of these, there's the flower sticking out, and then the calyx also has, on this one, it's kind of a darker color. Even when it's not in flower, those persist. So salvias are just easy plants and great for, hot summers, which we seem to be getting into more and more of a cycle of it having. Okay, jumping into perennials, and we've got a whole lot of them. Heucherellas. So, this is a fun group of plants. It's a hybrid between Heuchera and Tiarella, two of our natives. And what's interesting is, so Tiarella, there's about 5 species in the US. Heuchera, there's 35 species. And it's kind of hit or miss of going, did they pick a Heuchera that's growing up in the north, or did they pick one down in the hot, humid south? And that's where the breeding comes in and knowing a little bit behind the plants. This one pumpkin spice was, the Heuchera they used was Velosa, which is one that's right in the deep south. It's, the Heucheras that have that in their parentage tend to do better in the south. And so the Heucherellas that have that as their, partner, those really do well. And I love this color, this kind of rustic orange, almost like, it's almost like Corten steel. But they've got that paired with one of the blue hostas, I think, on the side, and then Pink Fizz, which has these nice bright pink flowers. that wonderful, veining in it. And both of these are going to top out about, like 10 to 18 inches in height. So not really big, but these will do great and bring you some color into the shade garden. This is a plant, it's such an awesome plant. Um, Amsonia hubrichtii. I love this. This is one that whenever I had to do huge sweeps of like daffodils when I was at High Point University, I would plant this in amongst the daffodils. So as the daffodils are finishing up and going away, this is coming up through it. So you get these wonderful kind of pale, pale blue flowers, hence the name Blue Star that are there in early spring. And this is one of those multi-season annual perennials where the fall color is absolutely phenomenal on it. It's that brilliant, bright yellow. I've seen that some that, depending on the seedlings, some have red stems. I remember seeing one of our friends, Jonathan Wright, had cut stems of this and had it with a black dahlia in an arrangement. It looked fantastic. But what's nice is even in the summer, it's this wonderful, soft, billowy texture. It'll, light the slightest breeze, you'll get movement in the garden, and it's tough as nails. This is just a fantastic perennial. Would not garden without it. Hence the reason why it was perennial plant of the year. Agapanthus, I've always loved these. Tony Avent, when we worked for him, he had a whole trial area of which ones do better for us in the South. This one, ironically bred up in Michigan, has been really hardy for us, really floriferous for us. So the only thing, the breeder, Hans Hansen, he's a dear friend of ours, and I'm like, what happened to Galaxy Blue? And apparently it crashed in the TC lab. So there's a new iteration that's coming in. He just sent me a test plant. So until then, we've got just the white agapanthus, but this one is tried and true and has done well in our area. Like I said, what we're doing at our own house is just buying different ones, putting them in a pot and bringing them in winter until we get a big enough plant and we can put some outside. But they're fantastic. Even when the spent seed heads are done, it just brings a little bit of different architecture into the garden. Anemones, normally these are the bane of my existence because if you remember the gardens before we did the restoration, the Japanese anemone had pretty much swallowed a quarter to a third of the pink and white garden. It spreads, it's rampant. And some varieties are better behaved than others, but this one was a variety that originated in England. It was two species, and one was a clump forming species, not a running one. And so it passed that trait on. So there's a whole series called the Swan series. But Tony Avent had promoted this one as the best of the series, and it's Dreaming Swan. And it's got white flowers, but those back sepals are that nice lavendery purple, but it's a clump forming Japanese anemone. So if you love these, you love, what the drama they bring into the late summer garden. This is perfect without letting it just completely take over your garden. So Dreaming Swan anemone. We've got a number of different columbines. I love, the term wild columbine. I guess that, says that there's a tame columbine out there. The natives, just straight species, Aquilegia canadensis, that can get up to about 3 feet tall. This one corbet was found out, in the wild. Someone noticed a different color. It also happened to be a more dwarf one. It's only about 1 foot tall. So it's a pale yellow columbine. What's nice is these are in bloom kind of as the hummingbirds are coming up. They're a great nectar source for some of our early bees. They're not long lived. So the one you plant today might not be the one that's in your garden 3 years from now. And what's okay is it will seed around. It's a great naturalizing perennial, native perennial. It's why we planted a bunch of them up along the trails. And it's just, I don't know, it's a comfort perennial when I see it. It makes me happy. But then, you go into the royal ones, the Kirigami series. These have the big spurs on them, which have the nectar is back in those spurs. But we've got deep blue and white and rose and pink. Both of these just, really showy flowers. And those can seed around a little bit in your garden as well. But They're just spectacular and just great harbinger of spring. A stilby, I don't know how many of you have grown a stilby and not had success. There's the old varieties like Rhineland and all those that you see in Breck's catalog and all the Dutch catalogs. And those are fine if you're up north. What you need is ones that have, more heat tolerance, that have Chinensis in the background, or this one, Thunbergii. But what was fantastic, this originated from a Japanese breeder where he got this wonderful chocolate burgundy foliage with it, and then these light pink flowers. So, again, it's I love colorful foliage in the garden because that persists longer than the flowers. So you can have this as a fantastic backdrop in the garden. It'll top out at about 3 feet tall, about 2 feet wide. I wouldn't put it in blazing hot sun, and I wouldn't put it in deep shade. Find a nice happy medium, and that way the color won't bleed out as much in the sun, but it'll be a little, if you have it in too much shade, it won't color up as much. So it's kind of like a Goldilocks spirea, so to speak. Baptisias, as much as I love all the new cultivars and colors that, we've got a couple of those, this is one that I've always loved. When we were out in Denver this past year, they had one of their prairie plantings, and it just rises above the grass. And what I love about Alba is the stems are this like smoky black to them, and it's got a presence. They'll top out about 4 feet tall, but just tough as nails. If you've ever had to try to dig a baptisia after it's been in the ground for a couple years, brace yourself. It is a chore. They can get woody roots. There was one, we cleaned up the baptisia collection at the Ralston, and I was getting my butt kicked by a perennial. Thought I was hitting tree roots. No, it was the woody roots of a baptisia. And that's the thing is when you do plant this, make sure that's where you want it, because moving them around, they'll sulk for a couple years before they really get going again. So this is just straight species, wild white baptisia. And then you go into all the amazing breeding work that's been done. And this all stemmed from Hans Hansen, who's the breeder at Walter's Gardens, and Tony Avent, two plant geeks botanizing the Southeast with a goal to get all the baptisia species together. And you put all that together and all those genetics, and then it starts kicking out all these amazing colors. So it's just been amazing to watch the progression from, I still remember visiting it 20 years ago, the row plots out in Castle Hayne. And it was like, ooh, that's a slightly different yellow. Now it's like we've got, these wonderful pink ones, pink lemonade, which, the flowers start out bright yellow and fade to pink. They're absolutely beautiful. And, they will seed around in your garden. So depending on, how comfortable you are with that, you can always cut the seed heads off or just let them seed around and see what pops up on your own, because you will get some different colors. But these, again, will top out 3 to 4 feet high. Crocosmias, for some reason, I've always liked this plant. There's the old variety Lucifer, which you will treat it as such because it can be a bit of a thug. Some of the newer varieties are a bit more restrained, but this one I love because it's kind of got a more peachy color to it. I keep crossing my fingers. Years ago when I worked for Plant Haven, we visited a breeder in England, and he had been breeding these, and the colors he had were like, pastels. And I'm like, when are these, it's been 10 years. He's got to release some. But until then, Walter's introduced this one, Peach Melba. So wonderful kind of iris-like foliage. It's basically a bulb, really tough plant. And, when you look at those flowers, guess what's going to go after it? Hummingbirds. Echinaceas, there's this wonderful seed strain that came out called Cheyenne Spirit, and it's kind of like you get every color under the sun out of these. They're long lasting. They will, if they're in the garden long enough and seed, year after year, you will gradually start going back to like the original, purples. But until then, you just get this amazing just array of colors of yellows, whites, oranges, reds. It's fantastic. And, the bees will go crazy after it. We have the other two series, Powwow White and Powwow Wild Berry. If you've never gone and smelled the coneflower, There are some, there's a white one called Fragrant Angel. Wild Berry is another one that if you go and smell it, it almost has a milk chocolate smell to it. So, they tell you to stop and smell the roses. Well, expand your, smelling and try other things. But both of these are going to top out almost the same height. It was a whole series that came out. They have these big trials out in California where they introduce all the plants, and this was one of the raves because it's a seed strain and it's uniform. So both of these, and what's nice about wild berry is as the flowers age, if you've seen some cone flowers as they age, they get kind of ratty looking. This one keeps its color for the majority of its life. Daylilies. Normally, yes, I am a plant snob, but these are, we all remember Stella d'Oro when that thing hit the market. That plant is everywhere, is the reblooming daylily. Well, they have continued to breed with that, and what I like is they've gotten some different colors. So this Stella Supreme is a nice, really pale yellow flower. Rosy Returns was the first pink reblooming daylily. And what's nice is both of these have a bit of fragrance to them, and they will rebloom. So, it's not the one thing, they flower and that's it. These will actually go ahead and deadhead them. That kind of encourages them of going, hey, I need to send up another round. They're not spending time making seed or anything. So both really good, daylilies that you get a little more bang for your buck out of. Heliopsis, the false sunflowers. I'm not, I won't say 100%, but this is one of the plants in our garden that I have not seen the deer touch. And believe me, they've gone after about near everything else. What's nice is that variety scabra. Scabra means rough. And deer are, they're delicate little creatures. They don't want to, eat something rough. So anything that has kind of a rough surface to it, it's not going to be a preferred thing. So that with that foliage, this foliage actually has a nice kind of a burgundy color to it. And you've got these wonderful like reds, oranges, and yellows set against it. It's just a fantastic kind of midsummer to late summer flowering sunflower. And you can always do, if you feel like it gets a little tall, do the Chelsea chop, in May, hack them back a bit. It'll delay flowering a little bit, but it'll keep them a bit more restrained in size. Of course, we've got to have hostas. I always loved how Tony would describe it. Yes, I've got hostas. I've got both. I've got the green and the variegated. The blue ones, I tried to get a good mix of different colors. Above the Clouds is a nice blue foliage one. Atlantis is a nice bicolor. Dancing Queen, most of the yellow foliaged hostas, they might, basically, they'll fade to green. This is one that emerges bright gold and stays bright gold throughout the whole season. I think it's called viridescence when they basically fade out into existence and they almost look green by the end of the season. So Dancing Queen is really it's just stunning right now in the cold frames. And then two others, Dancing in the Moonlight, which I love that rippling to it, and Royal Wedding. That one has Plantagenet in it, which is, the old August lily, which has white flowers and fragrant. So that's one if you want to plant it near a walkway where you can get that fragrance in the evening. But, a little bit of a smattering of some different hostas to choose from. And hellebores, these were a hit last year, so we wanted to bring them back. Hans has been doing a lot of breeding with hellebores. There's the wedding series. I don't know if Dark and Handsome is in the wedding series or just a good name. But I love seeing this color, kind of that you get these almost slate black colors to them. Wedding, yes.
Does the blossom up instead of, somebody told me that there's one now that blossoms.
They've as all new ones keep coming out, they keep trying to get them to have outward facing blooms instead of hanging down. So a lot of these are more outward facing. And Wedding Bells is a nice white double. I think we had these two last year and they all sold out. First Dance and Mother of the Bride. And these are Lenten roses, so these are the later flowering ones. There's also Whirlwind Romance. I love that color. And then there's the Christmas Rose, which is Helleborus niger. That is the earlier flowering species. So that one's going to start coming into flower in December. So, this is where, again, as in all things, diversity is good. Get, both your traditional Lenten roses, get your Christmas roses, you'll extend your bloom season. That's where, underneath the cherries, if you go out, we've got 2 different types of hellebores planted in there. So we extend the bloom season. And this one, Niger has been difficult for them to get into like tissue culture where they can mass produce it. This one, I can't remember if it's a seed strain that's reliable or they finally broke the code on tissue culture, but it's also got the nectaries that have bled into becoming petaloid. There's your word for the day, petaloid. It's basically, stamens that have modified into like petals. Iris, I love, love, love iris, and there is more to life than Caesar's brother. This one took the species, the Pseudacarus, which is invasive, and you will never see me sell that species here. It's the yellow flag iris that you'll see. It's kind of escaped. I think there's some of it down in Lake Catherine. They crossed that with Iris insata, and they basically got a sterile hybrid. And sometimes when you do create hybrids, you get hybrid vigor. So these things are big and beefy, and the colors on them are amazing. They get this, they kind of almost an eyeliner effect to them. And there's a whole number of different Japanese cultivars that have come out. So this is Tsukiyono, which translates to moonlit field. So just another fantastic iris. It'll bloom mid-season, so after your bearded irises, before your Japanese water irises. Again, diversity. Get a lot of different species. You can have irises blooming in your garden almost every month of the year. Again, like I said, more to life than just Caesar's brother. This is an Iris siberica called Black Joker. I love these colors. I will say it's a little self-serving when we're picking plants because I'm like, ooh, I want that one. But what's nice about Iris siberica, unlike bearded iris where the foliage can look really ratty after it's done flowering, Iris siberica, the Siberian iris, the foliage can still look really good throughout the majority of the season, even to the point of getting some nice fall color to them. And they're tough as nails. I mean, you really can't go wrong with them. So just adding a different color into the mix. This one is a little, it isn't as tall as some of the other ones. It's going to be kind of a 2-foot tall iris. This will bloom after German bearded irises, before the hybrids, and before the Japanese water iris. So again, get lots of different irises. Backed by popular demand, the Bartzilla peony. This is where they crossed tree peonies with traditional herbaceous peonies. And this was the one that when it hit the market, I can't remember the prices on them. It was a couple $100s for some of their first ones. But canary yellow flowers, and they get better every year. I think this will be the 3rd year for the ones in the blue and yellow garden. But those flowers, I kid you not, are like 8 inches across. They're huge. And the foliage looks good throughout almost the entire season. It's just an absolutely stunning peony. And like, if you want to see some other ones, obviously we've got Bartzilla in the blue and yellow garden. Walk in between the tea houses. On the original historic plans, it should have been herbaceous peonies. You know me, I wanted to try something different. So we've got a lot of other different Edo peonies, which are these hybrids in those areas. And the colors, if you've ever seen tree peonies, some of those colors are insane. And that has brought that trait into some of these flowers in addition to the flower size. So we've got a handful of the Bartzillas. Woodland phlox, this is a perennial I will beat until everyone has it in their yard. It's just a great native perennial. If you've got, if you're using mulch and you have good soil, it will seed around in your garden. You'll start getting different colors popping up. It's fragrant. I mean, what else can you ask for? Aside from, I know Forrest really wants a rabbit-proof one because he gets a little Farmer McGregor-ish about when they mow his down in the blue and yellow. But we've got 2 different ones. We've got Blue Moon and May Breeze. So, again, plant these, they'll top out, or when they're not flowering, it's an evergreen perennial, about 6 inches tall. When it flowers, it's about a foot tall. Wonderful, almost like a cloud. Fantastic perennial. Tall phlox. This is one, sometimes you hear people going, oh, I don't want cultivars, they're bad. This was selected out of a wild population. Someone was walking along a river in Tennessee and saw something different in a wild population and called it Jana. That does not change the genetics of it. It's a damn good phlox. Mount Cuba, who does a lot of the trials on native plants, they did an entire trial on tall phlox. Pollinators went to this plant 10-to-1 over just the straight species. And you can kind of see why, because it doesn't have as big a flower, it just has lots more of them. So there's plenty more room for pollinators to come. It's absolutely stunning. It's got good mildew resistance. It was perennial plant of the year, which always is a good thing to look for, but it's a fantastic tall garden phlox to have. You can put it, yeah. It will be a little bit more rangy, but that's fine. Lungwort, which, this goes back to medieval times when they would name things after the body parts they think that it would heal. So this one, it was spotted like a lung, which, it's like, were we randomly opening people up and looking at lungs? But lungwort was supposed to help, respiratory ailments. What's nice about these is they're evergreen perennials. Now, this is kind of like heuchera, where there's tons of them out on the market, and there's a lot that do not do well in the South. These two, Silver Bouquet and Diana Claire, they have a species, Pulmonaria longifolia, which is more heat tolerant than any other species. So this one will do well in the South. And what's nice is early spring, you get these amazing flowers. Silver Bouquet has kind of both pink and purple flowers. Diana Claire has that almost, almost a blue, but that set against that silver backdrop, they're just absolutely fantastic. It's almost, akin to a hosta. So they're going to do best. Don't put them in full sun, more part sun, part shade, but rough leaves, so deer are not really fond of it. And these are going to top out more like in the 6 to 8 inches high in height. Stokesia, I've always loved this flower. It's a great native, more down in Georgia area. My professor, Denny Werner, who's the one that's behind all the really cool red buds that have come out, he had a student working on breeding these. And what's nice is when he retired, that breeding project went to Walter's Gardens. They continued the breeding. So this makes me think of Denny, who's a great professor. But really good, Stokes aster, nice and dense, not rangy, flowers throughout most of the summer. You can deadhead it and it will give you a little bit of reblooming, but fantastic native perennial. And again, one of those ones where, it's a horticultural blue. We take a little liberty with that. We do have a handful of different shrubs in the mix. If you've ever grown smoke tree, this is one that came out years ago. I won't say who smuggled one back from England, and it was in the Ralston perennial border for a while, and people went nuts over it. So this is Golden Spirit. It gets this brilliant gold foliage during the summer. It gets the fantastic fall color that all smoke bushes get. These are going to get about 8 to 15 feet tall and wide. You can coppice them and just hack them back to keep them, more contained. That isn't a word. More controlled. There we go. It's been a long day. But this is a fantastic, just giving you foliage color throughout the whole summer. We also have Royal Purple, which is almost about the same size, 8 to 15 feet tall and wide. That Royal Burgundy color. Golden Spirit it's a very light, it doesn't do as much with the flowering. Royal Purple will give you the kind of smoky looking flowers that, of course, why it's called smoke bush. Also gets fantastic fall color. Again, both of these, you can hack them back and they're great as cutback shrubs as well. You're not going to get intense color out of them. They'll be like Golden Spirit Golden Spirit will be more chartreusey than gold. And Royal Purple will be kind of muddied out. And then Proven Winners has put out all these amazing, purple leaf and yellow leaf elderberries. Well, it's the European species that hates the South. Inevitably, you might get a year or two, and then they just start declining. This was our native elderberry that Keith Mearns found down in South Carolina. This is the photo on the bottom left is out at Plant Delights, planted out in full blazing sun right next to the road in Raleigh. And this was midsummer. So it is absolutely flaming yellow. Just an amazing plant. And it's our native. So it will do well for us in this area as opposed to the European selections. And I'd really be curious how you make elderberry syrup and stuff like that, but you could probably do that with this if you're so inclined. So Blonde Envy. Trees, we've got a smattering. We had some of these in the fall plant sale. This is a fantastic horse chestnut, pumpkin orange fall color. The flowers are kind of a greenish yellow in early spring. What's nice is unlike some of the other buckeyes that get the leaf scorch that look horrible and will basically drop their leaves early, this one holds on to its foliage all throughout the season, so you will get that good fall color. It's a small tree, about 25 feet tall. So our Autumn Splendor. This is a variegated form of our native black gum called Sherry's Cloud. I wouldn't necessarily put this out in full blazing sun, have it more in part sun, but nice creamy edge to that. It is definitely a slower grower than our native, just straight species black gum. So this is going to be a specimen tree, probably just being about 12 feet tall. Someone was really excited because this is not something that's commonly offered. We do have a nice smattering of ferns. We get these from Plantworks. They do a fantastic job growing these. The maidenhair fern that really does well for us. While we have it planted under the benches in the conservatory, it's happy outside, wonderful texture. You can use it in containers. It's a great plant, and it's a hybrid, so it's got a little bit more hybrid vigor, so it's not a dainty little thing. And one of the things that's nice with ferns, deer just do not like ferns, which you would think that they would just gobble these things up. So this is Maris's hardy maidenhair fern. This Ethereum, I love it. It's a hybrid between Japanese painted fern and our native lady fern. This was a planting I did, and I wish I could say I planned that, but those are Mardigan lilies popping up through it. I really want to do that in my yard. But it's just this wonderful silver foliage that's just fantastic in the garden. So this is ghost fern. We've got Jurassic gold fern. So this is kind of like you think about autumn fern, closely related species, but the new growth is supposed to be this coppery yellow. This is a clump one, so it's not going to run. It's unlike some of the others. Topping at about 2 feet tall. We do have southern wood fern. It's also going under the name river fern. But what's nice about this fern, with most ferns, they do the big flush in the spring and that's it. This one will continually send new fronds out during the season. There's a story about my dad looking out the window at his wonderful fern bed where my sisters had gone and just grabbed the fronds and pulled all the leaves off. And he was horrified to look at just these bare stems. That's why I'm the only one that was allowed to garden. But this one is again, deer resistant, but what's nice is it does well in sun and shade. We did a big planting of this back when I was at High Point with calla lilies coming through it. So it was just a wonderful combination. So southern wood fern. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pepper. Or you aren't quite Dr. Pepper yet, not Doctor.
Mike.
Oh, yes.
All right. Vegetables. So just so you know, all these vegetables were grown by hand, by me, by seed. So these are my babies, and I always love, you know, sending them out to their new homes and you all coming back and saying how much you enjoy them. So let's go through it. Starting off with tomatoes. This is the Super Sweet 100 classic cherry tomatoes. It has that beautiful gradient of colors, um, just like the title says, implies. You'll get 100 no, you'll have super sweet tomatoes. Um, and it's just great for snacking, throwing them in salads, doing all that stuff. The very popular Sun Gold is another cherry tomatoes. These sell out pretty fast. Little bit more tart than a regular cherry. And with both of these, you'll want something. It will climb up pretty tall. You'll want something for it to climb up. Mortgage Lifter. This is probably our biggest tomato that we grow. It says 2 pounds. I've seen them get 3, 4 pounds like that. They're huge. So the story with these is back in the Great Depression, this farmer bred this tomato. Everybody loved it, and he was able to lift his mortgage. So yeah, good for him. Gold medal. Last year, I loved growing these. It's got that beautiful bicolor in it, the red and the gold. It's just really awesome to look at, and it's great on a sandwich. Black Krim. This is your kind of darker tomato. It's got a more smokier flavor to it. And unlike kind of like your other purple tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, like the purple Cherokee, this is less prone to splitting and cracking. So if you like your tomatoes like looking nice, this is a good option. Early girl bush. So up till now, everything has been indeterminate, which means the tomatoes will grow all through the season until it hits a disease or the frost or whatever it gets. This will be the determinant, so it will grow to a certain size and it will produce around 15 tomatoes for you. So it's great if you do not have a lot of space. You can put it in a container, or if you don't want to drown in a whole bunch of tomatoes the entire summer, this is a good option for that. And this is kind of the list of what we'll have here. We'll have classics like the Cherokee Purple and Brandywine. On the peppers, this is the Carolina Wonder, very similar to your traditional California Wonder. It was bred in this area, so it will do well here in terms of the climate and diseases and stuff like that. It's resistant to a lot of that. This always surprises me every year, how much of the bell peppers it will produce per bush. You'll just get a lot, and you can leave it on there to let it ripen the red, or pick it as soon as it is green. Lipstick. This is a fun looking one. It's called lipstick because it looks like a lipstick thing. Very sweet. It's like candy. I think it's the sweetest pepper I've ever had. It's just a good pepper, similar to a bell, but just very, very sweet. Orange lunchbox, another popular one that sells out pretty quickly. Again, this is perfect for pots or containers. It won't get too big. You'll get a lot of these little small orange peppers that are sweet, and it's great for just walking by and snagging one off. Jimmy Nardello is an Italian frying pepper. This will produce a lot of peppers, a lot of long peppers. It looks very beautiful on its own, but throwing it in with grilling some onions and peppers with it, doing whatever like an Italian dish, yes. Possibly. Shishito, yeah. Yeah, yes, we did sell shishito last year. Yes. Okay. Not yet, no. Maybe not this year. But again, great for like Italian cooking. Big guy jalapeno is our hot pepper. This grows huge jalapeno peppers, but it's not as hot as a traditional jalapeno pepper. So you can use it for like what jalapeno poppers. It takes it to the next level. You just come in with this huge jalapeno filled with all good stuff, and it's not going to burn your entire face off. So this is our pepper list. We will have a purple beauty bell pepper, and if you do want to burn your face off, we've got a Carolina cayenne, similar to the Carolina Wonder, where it was bred in this area, so it does very, very well here. We're doing eggplants this year. Eggplants got crazy last year. We didn't have any, but this year we do.